What's good, YouTube? Welcome back. Today it is Lazy Daze Tubby. I'm back at it again on my solo channel doing some more history reaction for you guys today. It is some more extra credits, extra history content for you. It is their series, The End of the Samurai, Gangs of Kyoto, Extra History Part 2. I'm really looking forward to finding out more about some Japanese history, epic history, extra history, extra credits, have a great storytelling, and I'm looking forward to finding out some more about this subject. They do an amazing job, and the last episode was absolutely amazing. I enjoy these. They're funny, they're quick, short little reactions, and they're just enjoyable to do. So I hope you guys are enjoying them, and I hope you're looking forward to more. If you are, you know what you need to do. You need to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, but we're going to jump straight into this one.
Ikadaya in Kyoto, July 8th, 1864. Men creep toward the glowing windows of the boarding house. They can see shadows of those talking inside. They wear the blue robes of the Shinsengumi, the feared police force of the shogun. Expert swordsmen, they've been tasked with suppressing the political violence that's tearing up the lantern-lit streets of the imperial city.
Okay.
Inside are the men of Choshu, and they plan to set fire to Kyoto, then use the confusion to attack rivals and get custody of the emperor. Suddenly, the Shinsengumi rush the building. Swords clash, but they're outnumbered. 20 of them against 30 Choshu plotters. Katanas swipe and strike, battles rage up and down the stairs. Swordsmen smash through paper walls. The fighting spills out of the inn and onto a nearby bridge. But the Shinsengumi hold their ground, as reinforcements surround the plotters within the besieged inn. 2 hours later, the Shinsengumi have killed 8 Choshu men and arrested 23 more. The plot is foiled, but Kyoto will still burn.
And how is that going to happen, I guess?
4 years after the assassination of Ii Naosuke, Japanese politics were as divided as ever. Enemies of the shogunate increasingly coalesced into the Sonojoi faction, the anti-foreign pro-imperial party, which marched under the motto, "Revere the Emperor, expel the barbarians," that was feeding off of discontent with the government's
Remember that from last episode?
All the while, Europe had followed the United States, enforcing unequal treaties on Japan, not only allowing their citizens to be there, but also be immune to Japanese law. It was a tinderbox.
It's always going to be an issue. The foreign state should always be able to indict their law.
And it got set alight in 1860, when a British merchant named Charles Richardson got impatient on a major road and tried to force his way through a column of passing Satsuma samurai. The samurai, who had the right to kill any commoner that disrespected them, cut Richardson down. Britain argued that Richardson was murdered and demanded the Satsuma pay a £100,000 indemnity as a kind of restitution. But when the Satsuma refused to pay or execute those responsible, Britain threatened a military response. To which the shogunate, fearing the British would bombard Edo, then paid the indemnity.
You would have to. You would have to back in those times. Us British were just ruthless.
Satsuma still refused to turn over Richardson's killers. The standoff was perfectly calculated to inflame the Sonojoi, demonstrating that foreigners felt they could behave any way they wanted without consequence, backed up by their country's gunboats. And the next year, Emperor Komei himself joined the political fray. For centuries, the emperors of Japan had been apolitical figures, largely ceremonial. But Komei saw an opportunity to subvert the shogunate that effectively held him as a prisoner and seize political power himself.
What an interesting move to be done by an emperor of those times.
So in 1863, when he issued an order
to
expel barbarians, giving all foreigners 2 months to leave Japan, his intentions were immediately clear. The emperor had aligned himself against the foreign policy of the shogun, and with those seeking a restoration of imperial power. He'd effectively declared that restorationists, not the shogun, were the ones representing his interests. Following the emperor's order, the daimyo of the Choshu clan began firing on foreign ships in the Shimonoseki Strait, even using the 3 American-built steamships he'd purchased to battle the USS Wyoming, which originally had tried to force the port open. A month later, British warships, sent to demand that Satsuma hand over Richardson's killers, bombarded the Satsuma-held city of Kagoshima, the city's antiquated shore batteries holding out until the British ship ran out of ammunition. As it sailed off, the samurai of Satsuma stood in the knee-deep water, waving their swords. The next year, a multinational fleet of British, Dutch, French, and a single American ship, all they could spare due to the Civil War, attacked Shimonoseki again. These
Still
punitive
big.
expeditions only deepened anti-foreign sentiment and the divide between the supporters of the emperor and those of the shogun. Then the plots began. Because if the restorationist faction could get their hands on the emperor, they could declare the Tokugawa shogunate illegitimate and bring it down. Kyoto filled with plotters of many stripes, from moderate to radical. There were staunch traditionalists, like the Satsuma samurai Saigo Takamori, who believed in imperial restoration, but also military modernization as a survival tactic. Then there was Sakuma Shosen, a Renaissance man who'd read Western books and done experiments with electricity, batteries, and even built a working telegraph before Perry had even arrived.
Wow, really?
To open Japan fully to trade, with radical modernization under the slogan, Japanese spirit, Western technique. And then there was...
And I believe that gets carried throughout the Japanese militaristic stage, I believe that saying.
Sakamoto Ryoma, a samurai who hoped that after reinstalling the emperor, a new government would abolish feudalism and the caste system. He imagined a future where Japan was a democracy of the American or British style, with equality for all men and a gradual industrialization and modernization process that also respected tradition. And you could always tell who Ryoma was. He wore samurai robes and swords, but Western shoes. Kyoto became a hotbed of political violence. Samurai killed shogunate officials or political opponents. Rival clans skirmished along the canals and brawled through tea houses and inns. Even the British ambassador was attacked. And Sakuma Shosen, the pro-science...
Seems like such a turbulent time they were going through during this 4 years.
Samurai who advocated opening the country to trade was ambushed and murdered in broad daylight.
Shit.
Shogunate troops poured into the imperial palace, partially honor guards, partially prison guards, so the rebel clans couldn't rescue the emperor, and a dreaded new force, the Shinsengumi, patrolled the streets. Made up of Ronin recruited from the sword schools of Edo, and
what, basically policemen,
originally
bandit
temporary
policemen.
bodyguards for the shogun, the Shinsengumi were repurposed into a police force. Consummate swordsmen and fanatically loyal to the shogun, they became infamous for operating more as a political gang. They would put up signs targeting restorationists and then ambush said targets when they came to take the messages down. And actually, their first leader became so known for his erratic outbursts of violence that the Shinsengumi themselves assassinated him. But they proved...
You were that much of a threat to making them look that bad that they were like, got to go. He's got to go. Just get rid of him. Dump him in the sea. Dump him in the lake.
Their worth smashing anti-shogunate plots, like the Ikadaya incident. Though less than 300 in number, their simple banners and headbands, marked with the character for sincerity, became the face of shogunate rule in Kyoto. 1 month after the fight at the Ikadaya Inn, the streets of Kyoto were afire once more. A force of 3,000 samurai, 1,400 from Choshu, and 1,600 Ronin attacked a gate of the imperial palace. And in the confused fighting, Tokugawa Yoshinobu, who had nearly been declared shogun during the last succession crisis, led a patchwork of clans against the rebels. It was an odd mix. The Satsuma samurai, led by Saigo Takamori, took the side of the shogunate alongside the Shinsengumi.
Okay.
Despite Saigo's restorationist feelings, he was not yet ready to rebel. It was a disaster for the Choshu forces. Outnumbered more than 10 to 1, and leaving 400 bodies at the gate, they set part of the palace alight in an attempt to escape, but burned down part of Kyoto in the process. And that's when the shogunate really started cracking down on dissent. They hastily organized an expedition to punish Choshu, but when the expedition arrived, there was no war to fight. Because Saigo Takamori, among the expedition's commanders, persuaded the Choshu samurai, rather than battle, to simply hand over the plot's leaders.
Okay.
The shogun was, to be honest, relieved.
Yeah.
Because a conflict might provoke a larger war, and currently, he had the upper hand. Except he didn't. Because while the Choshu clans were Saigo Takamori's traditional rivals, he had realized that if he ever hoped to overthrow the shogun, the southern domains of Satsuma and Choshu would have to form an anti-Tokugawa bloc. Sneaky, sneaky.
Very
but to
sneaky.
pursue this uneasy alliance, they would need a go-between. A third party that belonged to neither clan and could broker a deal. A samurai everyone respected. And he knew just the guy. Sakamoto Ryoma. Like many restorationists, he'd fled to Satsuma. And after nearly 2 years of work and a coup that brought an extremist restorationist faction to power in Choshu, he'd managed to forge an alliance. And the forging didn't stop there. Choshu had been long interested in building a navy of Western ships, but now they expanded to modern rifles and infantry as well. Satsuma,
again, something you just have to do, especially with technology. You just have to modernize. You have to get up with the times.
Impressed with British firepower after the bombardment of Kagoshima, paid part of the indemnity for Richardson and agreed to pay the rest by buying steam-powered warships. And both provinces also hired members of the European military to train their new troops and naval officers. No one knew it, but these two rebel provinces were creating what would become the Imperial Japanese Navy. Meanwhile, in Edo, the shogunate military was doing the same, buying French ships and former Confederate steamers, organizing another Choshu expedition to smash these rebel provinces. But when the shogunate troops reached Choshu, they found something they didn't expect: a well-drilled modern army, rather than the partially modernized shogunate force. The expedition fell apart in disaster, and the shogunate's troops were forced to retreat. And then, the shogun died.
Oh, really? Did he die?
And two new young men, who would both...
Shit, the emperor died as well.
...prove pivotal figures, came to the scene. Tokugawa Yoshinobu, the man who'd led the shogunate forces during the attack on the palace gate, became the new shogun. And then 6 months later, a new emperor ascended, and, as was tradition, took a new name: Meiji. And he believed in the restoration, even if it meant a war. What's that, Zoe?
And I guess we'll find out what happens in the next episode. I am thoroughly enjoying my journey through this subject. I love Japanese culture, Japanese history, all of that good stuff. So I am looking forward to finding out what happens in the next episode, and I hope you guys are as well. If you are, you know exactly what you need to do. You need to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will catch you in the next video.